Season 2 of Chat TPT is here. Join us as we journey through the music industry's diverse landscape, from insider insights to holistic success. We cover it all. Tune in every other week for uplifting conversations and valuable tips to fuel your career. Oh, are we starting?
We are starting. Specifically, you're starting. I'm putting you in the hot seat.
You know what, Marcus?
Don't.
No, what? Uno reverse? You know what? That is fair. That is fair. All right. So for our listeners who are listening on Spotify, Apple Music, so on and so forth, I told Kayla that she was going to introduce our amazing guest today, and then she put up an Uno reverse card. So I'm going to introduce our amazing guest today. Welcome back to Chat TPT. Obviously, I'm Marcus Grant. Kayla Solomon is here with me, and we are in here at season 2, where we are talking about the relationships we have cultivated with individuals and showcasing some of the awesome and amazing people who have done great things in the world and who are creating impact in the lives of real human beings. As you know, as you guys listen to this podcast, you know we, Kayla and I, value very much the importance of treating yourself as more than just a musician. I think this guest does a really good job of this. This is the founder of MusicFit Academy and Trumpet Headquarters, and just an all-around amazing person. We have Estela Aragon with us. Estela, how are you?
I am so much better now that I'm sitting here talking to you two. My two little idols out there.
Oh, that's so sweet, and not necessary. You're my idol. I wish I had an Uno reverse card in front of me.
Right? Yes. Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's exactly what we needed.
Yes.
She's ready. 100%.
Kayla is prepared. Yeah, I feel unprepared. I'm gonna need my deck of
all
Uno
my
cards next time. Yeah. Maybe it needs to be a requirement for a future. You know, we're learning our season 2 episode by episode, and apparently what we've already learned is that we need a deck of cards to assist us in the meeting. Otherwise, it's not a real episode. Luckily,
Whatever
Kayla
it
has
takes.
hers. Yes, exactly. Kayla has hers, so this is a real episode. We're good.
So ready. All right, that was a beautiful introduction, Marcus. You're so good with words.
Well,
so
thank you.
I
Probably
appreciate
way
it.
longer than it needed to be, but
That's okay.
Here we are.
So, Estela, when Marcus and I were discussing this episode, you were probably one of the first people I thought of, just because seeing like everything that you've done with MusicFit Academy, because like, you know, I work with you for that company, and I think it's amazing how you do everything, and how long has MusicFit been around?
10 years. It's going to be
amazing.
It's
going to be the
crazy.
10-year anniversary this July 17th.
That's amazing, because everyone
insane.
sort of got into the online teaching, you know, when COVID hit, but you were doing this
Right.
way before. So you kind of like, you know, trailblazing your way through and showing people that this is absolutely possible. So
Yeah,
Do you
it
wanna-
was kind of a I was gonna go right off of that right there. It was kind of like an amazing thing, not in a good way, but when COVID hit, I just kept doing what I was doing. So it was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just keep doing this. It doesn't seem to be affected that much, and that was it was a gift, honestly. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
amazing.
But you were going to ask me something.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you want to talk about your process, like how you came up with the idea, how you sort of established it, and like everything that kind of went into it. Because as musicians, from like the performance side, we don't always get to see that business side of music. And I feel like a lot of people could stand to be exposed to that.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I could talk about the necessities for business classes and music schools all day. But nobody has enough time for all that. So, basically, I have 2 performance degrees. I have bachelor's and a master's degree in performance, and I did do education for like 1 semester in my undergrad, and that was all it took for me to be like, no. No, not to say anything bad about anyone who is an actual music education major, but I was like, I can't do this. This is not what I need. I don't want to do paperwork, and stuff like that. It's so vastly different. But I'm glad I did it for one semester because then I could know that that's not what you wanted, right? You gotta try stuff to know what you like and what you don't like. And way back, we have to go back like what, 20 years. I always knew I wanted to own my own business. And I knew I needed a performance degree because in my mind, I was like, I need to be really good at trumpet because otherwise my business is not going to work. And I always had that very clear. I was like, I need to be an expert at this one thing. Otherwise, how am I going to sell that? My mom and my parents always had businesses too. And I kind of grew up around that. When I was little, they had like a taxi business. So we owned 24 Volkswagens. As you can imagine, parking for our neighbors was always a nightmare. They're like, we can't park anywhere. We're like, I'm sorry. And so I always grew up around that, around that vibe, like set your own hours, and this is the business and managing the business and all the good and challenges that come with that. So going into my undergrad and into my master's degree, I still had very clear that I wanted to own my own business, but I had no idea how that was going to go. Like I didn't know what that was going to look like ever. Until my master's, I went to the University of South Carolina, which has a little program called Spark Lab, which is headed by David Cutler, Dr. David Cutler, and I did his classes while I was there, and it was just like my brain exploded with ideas from this man. David Cutler is one of those people that's just like on rocket ultra mode all the time. Like, have you guys ever talked to him?
I did the Savvy Musician in Action back, and it was called such with him that summer, and yeah, I can verify that
what year did you do that?
2015, 2014.
Okay, I did it 2014.
We might have been in the same. Oh, there might be some research to be done. Did we meet each other and not know? We'll have to find it out.
We're gonna have to find out right now because I did it in 2014 because that was the year I graduated, and I did it right before like right after graduation.
It must have been 2015 for me because we our venture Janet's band ended up winning the entrepreneurial thing,
No.
and it made me
Okay.
it made me cry. Like
okay.
it made me really, really, really emotional. It was
No
one of
way.
the few instances that I was just like filled with. That's maybe another story for another time. But the synopsis of it is when I was in college, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and it had become a battle. And a lot of the people that we had gotten together with in the group could relate to some similar things. And so the band was essentially an initiative to help raise money, a nonprofit organization to raise awareness and raise money for cancer survivors and for fighting and battling cancer and so on and so forth. It had a lot of similarities to Ryan Anthony's Cancer Blows when it started to become really, really, prolific and whatnot. And anyway,
I love it.
Dr. Cutler is awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean the little, it just sounds like our trains were just like almost on the same track there for that year. But the year before that, in 2014, is when I did it, and my venture won that year.
That's so cool.
So, I'm not trying to say anything, but it sounds like we started that thing right, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're trying to say is, Dr. Cutler, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Cutler, if you're watching this, we are the fruits of your hard work. But that it was one of those things. Dr. Cutler kind of started everything, and like I said, he's one of those people that is just always on 250% mode.
He's amazing. Yeah.
He's like this little mastermind of stuff, and so he will give you like 350 ideas at any given time. And your job, which is the hard job, is to pick out the one that actually makes sense to your goals and what you want to do with your life. And he just so happened to say the right things at the right time to me and in my classes, and Music Fit started to kind of come together. And it went from being something very different to what it is now. But I always thought that sports and music were like that, you know, they were like friends. And Kayla's over here like, whoo, whoo, whoo. And just putting up her hands over there. Because it's true. It's true. There's so many just from the actual physical side of it, like, you know, having to rest to actually get stronger. And just so many psychological aspects. We could go on forever about this, but that's where Music Fit came out of. And fast forward 10 years, it's now 100% virtual, which was always my goal. I've always wanted to just like be able to move or travel or like go live abroad for a few months, but still be able to work and create income. So you can pay while you're there, otherwise you're going to be very hungry. Um, and that's kind of how that came about. So yeah, you asked me how long it's been, and I kind of forgot that this year is going to be 10 years of that. It's pretty crazy.
That's awesome. We should have a party. We should have a cake.
Yeah, we should totally have a cake. We should have a virtual party with a real cake.
We should have a
And
party with a cake, and then we should just have another cake. Just have 2 cakes.
I think everybody should have their own cake.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I'm
I
all
think
for
it's a
the
good idea.
cake.
Yep. Yep.
definitely. Okay, perfect. We need to set the date on that.
You said July
July
17th, right?
17th. Yes,
July-
2 days after, wait, 1, 2, yes, 2 days after my birthday. So this is how it went down. I graduated in 2014. I did the 7 Musician in Action. We won. I was pumped. And my birthday is July 15th, and I was in Tampa for like, I guess my birthday. And at the time I had about like $500 in my bank account. And I was like, all right, well, it's time to get my stuff together. Let's get going with this Music Fit thing and see what we can make. But I was like, well, first I need a website because that is what you learned in Dr. Cutler's class. You can't have a storefront without a storefront, right? So I made the website in 2 days. So I spent like 10 or 12 hours on the 16th and 10 or 12 hours on the 17th. And then by the end of that day on the 17th, it was done. And then I remember that day, like sharing it everywhere on like, at the time I lived in Columbia, South Carolina. So I was going on all these Columbia, South Carolina Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts and, you know, what was cool back then. And just saying like, hey, this is who I am. This is my new school, blah, blah, blah. And I was sending emails to like 60 different bands out within a 20-mile radius. Like, hey, this is who I am. I just finished my degree. Oh, I won this prize at this cool music thing. And I want to come to your school and do a masterclass for free to show you what I can do. And all I ask is that I can just bring some cards or like flyers back when we did flyers to your kids about private lessons. And out of all 60, like 5 got back to me. And by the end of that year, like by the end of 2014, I was working at 4 different schools, like weekly. I would go and do master classes. You know, I went once and they were like, hey, we really like what you do. And the kids were like, loved the class. So I ended up getting just like jobs doing that. And then from that, I got my first students for Music Fit. And that was all in person. And it wasn't until about 2016 that I was like, okay, we need to start moving this to virtual because I'm moving to Texas now. So I didn't want to lose everybody. Obviously, I needed income, you know, and security to move. So it's like, let's do this. And everybody was super hesitant. Like everybody's like, what, virtual? How are we going to do that? I didn't understand how that works. And, you know, it wasn't how it is today when you say, let's do a Zoom and people are like, okay, cool. Back then it was like just so weird and uncomfortable. So I was like, well, we can just try it. And if you hate it, we don't have to keep doing lessons. Like, I'm not going to force you to do lessons. And we did it. And it, you know, I think like 80% of them stuck around after that. And that's when the whole like virtual only thing kind of started rolling along. And yeah, and then I guess here we are today. And Kayla is a coach at Music Fit. And my partner is also a coach at Music Fit. So we're growing and expanding.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's so awesome. I'm about to share on our I'm going to share the website just to show the website. Um, we I want to share it because for a couple of reasons. So for those who are watching this video related, first of all, like when we go to your website, it is instantly apparent what you do and who's involved, which is so cool. You might think that that's common sense, but it's not. You know, a lot of times people like we get trained to kind of put our own resume up online and to show people about all the things that we do, and it's kind of a really big mistake, you know, when we as musicians are trying to set up our businesses, because what we really need is how are we serving our clients, and
Right.
like here immediately you see, you know, who are the coaches, what is the method, pricing, testimonials, etc., how to contact, and we know exactly what it is. We go to musicfitacademy.com and we see trumpet lessons online, virtual, and trumpet lessons in Austin. And then we also see highlights about the studio as well. So it's very, very clear what you're doing and also why you're doing it, which is just, I think it's really great. I also really like the logo. Um,
Oh,
the
so
logo
that
is really
that
cool.
was actually the logo was created by a fellow savvy musician from 2014
Nice.
for that venture that day. She ended up making it, and it stuck. Like it's just been that since then.
That's so cool. That's
Right?
great. There's so many things too that you like that you have said, that I hope people listen more than once to your answer to this initial question, because there's a bunch of really powerful things you mentioned. And first of all, at the very beginning, I'm not going to catch them all, but I'm going to try to catch as many as possible. Um, you said at the very beginning that you were that uh, the importance of building a product to be able to market was really important. So you needed to study trumpet and be a great trumpet player,
Right.
which is and that by itself would be the thing that would help you to build and grow and develop, you know, your product as a business. I think a lot of times we have this. There's a lot of people will bring a lot of stats out, especially when we talk about business. Oftentimes we'll have like, is it the tail wagging the dog, you know, the cart before the horse, that type of thing. We'll look at millionaires and we'll be like, oh, well, a millionaire has 7 different streams of income, so that means I need to start 7 different projects. It's like, no, 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 you've got it backwards. You need to do one thing incredibly well that everyone will love it, and then you'll be able to market it and it will be successful, and from that the other
Right.
areas derive. And I
Exactly.
think like what you've done with your career is a really big example of that type of thing. I also wanted to like, I mean, you've been able to provide voices for individuals and provide abilities for growth for individuals that, you know, may not necessarily have been able to have it in the realm that you've done. One, because you're able to offer this virtually in a way and at a time where, I mean, I might dare say that not many people were doing it. Still, not many people are doing it now. But you have the experience and longevity to prove that it works and that it works long term, and it doesn't just work because we were forced into it in 2020.
Yeah,
Would you
no,
be
yeah.
Yeah, would you be willing to talk a little bit about like some of the things that you learned when you started moving through that process? And maybe if we say specifically, you know, when things shut down in 2020, is some things you were grateful as things grew in your studio that you were able to just carry on into the virtual world that we were sort of forced into?
Um, yeah, absolutely. It, like I said before, when the pandemic hit, um, it was, yeah, I mean, we were all there, all of our colleagues on Facebook and everything. We're like, well, all my gigs just got canceled for the next year. So, and the college I teach at is like out right now. Um, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. And everyone's like dipping into their emergency funds if they hopefully have had one even. Um, and and I was sitting over here kind of like, all right, well, everything's online. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And my only concern at the time was the economy. So I was like, if the economy really, really tanks, then I'm going to start losing people because people have to prioritize food over trumpet lessons. Um, and although, you know what, trumpet lessons is food. Just a different
Yes.
kind, but it's
Yes.
still food.
For the soul.
Um, so yeah, it was like I said, it was a gift, and in many ways I felt like it was I was as thankful as I also felt like bad for everybody around me, you know. But at the time, all I could do was just kind of keep going and keep chugging along till things kind of settled. And yeah, it's been a crazy technology thing. Like when I set out to do Music Fit, um, doing stuff online like virtual lessons wasn't that big. Like I said, I use Skype, and funnily enough, I still use Skype because almost like 70% of the time I'm having problems with Zoom. So, and then I put people on Skype and it just works. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna use the software that nobody uses anymore, because it just works. And why fix it if it's not broken? Um, but as far as like technology and kind of moving along with that, I've always just tried to stay on top of little methods and things that you can do to make it seem like you're there, even if you're not there with them. Um, so for example, I have this little tablet. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but it's called a Remarkable, right? It's like paper thin, and it's basically like paper. It's just digital paper. It doesn't have internet on it or anything like that. It's just paper, and it has, a million different pages. But what I can do is I have a staff paper on there, and during my lessons, I can project on the screen and write exactly the exercise and the drill exactly as I want them to play it, so that I'm not like, okay, you're gonna just play four eighth notes and then four beats of 16th notes, and you're gonna rest for two beats. Then you're gonna breathe there, and you're gonna play a quarter note and do that again, but a half step lower. And they're already like, oh, a what, a what? So
I
so
was
then
just
I
like,
just
what?
yeah. So then I just take this and I write down exactly what I wanted to do. And we'll do like theory lessons like that, and things like that. So I think when people experience that, especially people who have never done virtual trumpet lessons before, and I do get those that are hesitant to do it. And I'm like, listen, we've been doing this for a long time. We have figured it out. Try it because the first one's complimentary. Once they see that, they're like, oh, well, this looks great. All right, let's go ahead and do it. So I think it's a matter of staying on top of the tech that's available to you because there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot you can do. Yes.
My
Yeah.
next question actually is about your teaching style. So, I mean, you're a fabulous teacher. Like you have lots of students, and the success of Music Fit and Headquarters to sort of like back you up on that. But how do you approach teaching from a virtual standpoint, like with different learning styles, different abilities? Like I know people can sometimes be like, oh, if you're a brand new trumpet player, you shouldn't start online because your teacher can't help you. I mean, I've had some students who were hesitant about that as well. But how do you approach that, like the more like physical things or like hands-on things that people would expect, but from a virtual standpoint?
Okay. So you mean like during lessons or before we even jump into lessons?
Yeah, during lessons.
During lessons. So like when someone is starting at first, I will usually have them be very close to the camera. I'll just be like, please be as close. Please bring your face as close to the camera as as much as it's not comical, for like as close as you can without just looking hilarious to me. Um, and and then I want to just see. I'll be like, can you smile? And then people go, and I'm like, I want to see your teeth. I want to see your lips closely because when you see somebody in person and they're standing, what, 3 feet away from you or sitting 3 feet next to you in real life, you have a very clear view, as long as you're blind, or have like really thick glasses, of their lip shape. And like if you look at them, like if they're sitting here and they're looking forward and I look at them, I can see their profile, right? And just based on their profile, I can tell if their lips are like round or if they're flat. or if they kind of have like a cupid's bow, or if their lower lip is a lot fleshier and more round than their upper lip. And so you get all this feedback and information from being right next to somebody. And you can also like feel their energy. Like, you know, as soon as you meet somebody, you can kind of tell if they're tense or if they're like super chill person. It's something you pick up like that because we are humans and that's what we do. We pick up information. But when it's virtual, you don't get the energy as easily. So you have to talk more. Um, so when I first meet someone, usually for like a complimentary lesson or consultations, I do like 2 or 3 private consultations through Trumpet Headquarters a week, um, where I get together for just 1 hour with a random individual I have never met or taught in my life, and we just get the 1 hour for me to fix whatever issue it is that they're having. And those things are especially tricky because I want them to talk to me for about 10, 15 minutes so I can pick up on them, and their demeanor and their body language and stuff like that. And then when we start actually trying to set up embouchure, like if they're beginners, like I said, I'll have them be very close, like this close. And then I'll have them put the mouthpiece on. And then I'll be like, do the same thing, but profile. So I'll just have them do that. So I can see like job placement. Sometimes they're just sitting there like, like that. And everything is like pointing down and the jaw's all the way back here. And they're having a lot of issues because of that. Or sometimes you'll see like something from the front, but the trumpet blocks a lot of your view. So you need to see it from the side to see if they're actually like playing like that or doing some other weird thing. So I do a lot of that. I'm like, please play from looking left and then now rotate and look to your right so I can see things better. Um, every once in a while, I will ask for visualizers so I can have a better insight of what might be happening that I could otherwise, be there for. Um, so video wise, yeah, that's kind of what I do. As far as like hand placement and physical things, it's pretty easy. Like I've never really thought too much about it. Like I can just like I have some kids that are like this. I mean, that's a very obvious visual thing. You can just be like, can you just stop and take a breath and let sink into your body a little bit? Um, but as far as holding the trumpets and things like that, I can do this and have my camera very clear. And as far as sound used to be harder for me. When I first started doing virtual, it was harder to tell whether the issue was the sound, like the audio, or if it was the player. And I will say that that comes with experience. So I've been doing virtual for about 8 years. And today, like, I feel so confident about being able to tell if it's you or if it's the audio and what exactly it is. Like, I'll hear, usually people come in and they're kind of nervous and they're like, what do I play? And I'm like, just play like a long tone, play a 2 note flexibility, play a C major scale, the most basic thing. And just from them playing one scale, I can tell if they're tonguing, I can tell if they're doing air attacks, I can tell if the air is like the air column is just waving like crazy. And I will admit, like, that was a lot harder before. But like I said, it's one of those things that comes from experience and from practicing myself and from teaching so much that you just learn what these things are like beyond the technological limitations.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing you talk about this because it's one of those things, oftentimes when we are trepidatious about starting something that we're not familiar with, usually the first things that come to mind are, well, here are the objections. And it's cool. I mean, it's just really, my last comment about your answer was a business-minded comment. And this one's going to be one too, because it just seems like you have just a very strong understanding of how to build and run a business. I think that's really cool. I know you talked about you have it as a part of your upbringing and your family, and that's a very valuable skill and asset. When we have objections in life, we can throw our hands up and say, well, it's not for me, I can't do it. But you can also say, okay, well, what's the solution to this objection? How can I go about this? And so on and so forth. And if it's 146 problems, then you can conquer 146 of them. And if you do it one a day, then in less than half a year, you've taken care of all your objections. And then you have the next 9.5 years to slay, right? And people just don't, it's very hard for us to sit down and take a look at something that feels uncomfortable and to make ourselves comfortable with that. It's just not a skill that we have trained on a regular basis. But in many ways, it's kind of what we do as musicians when we major in it, right? It's not from a business side of things, but we have a lot of things that bring about challenges when we're pursuing our career. And just taking the problems that we run through as music majors and then music major graduates and going out into the field and applying the skills that we learn to overcome those objections to the other areas of what we do. I think that is, in many ways, the secret sauce, if you will, to making sure that we have successful careers. I did want to ask you something about this might be a really, really big question that can't be asked in a succinct amount of time, but I'm going to try it anyway. We have, you can just say no. Kayla is putting up the the action card, just say no. So I can ask you this question and you could just be like hard pass. That's fine if you want to do that. But when we, a lot of musicians, when we go through college, we spend a lot of time on the building of the craft and the networking with people and so on and so forth, and following our dream job and whatever the case may be. But we're not always necessarily taught how to continue to make things work when things don't go exactly our way, right? So, for example, if I want to be the principal trumpet player of the LA Phil, if I want to take Tom Hooten's job when he retires, right? That may or may not happen anytime soon. And so if I'm a student and I'm graduating, then, what are the things I'm going to do in the meantime? Am I just going to sit on my hands and wait for that job to open and then hope that I'm the one of the 400 people that gets that job? How am I going to support myself as a musician when I go through that process? A lot of the things that happen is we see a lot of people graduate, and you can tell me if you've seen this too, Estela. A lot of people graduate and then they're not able to get a job immediately in their field, so they get a job outside of their field, and then it's really comfortable, it pays the bills, and so they end up staying there, and bye music career. Which is fine, but if you've put 6 years or 8 years or sometimes 12 years into your career only to not do it, the time and the money and the opportunity cost, you could have saved those 12 years to do whatever you were going to do anyway, right? So super long setup for the question, but my question for you is, did you have times in your life where you experienced that, maybe around the Savvy Musician in Action era, where you felt like, I know you mentioned you weren't entirely sure how to get to where you are today, but you did. You went through the process and got there. Was there a dream or passion that you had in college that didn't necessarily come to be, or was what you're doing now your exact passion? And did you work your way through that from the beginning?
No, definitely did not work my way through that from the beginning. I think that is extremely rare. I think the only thing that really did pan out is what I told my mom when I was 11 years old. And that was, Mom, I want to play trumpet for a living when I grow up. And I don't really perform that much anymore. I retired from performance probably about 5 or 6 years ago, right around the time when I started Trumpet Headquarters. And I have a gig in like a couple of weeks. We're doing Mozart's Requiem, but
Nice.
I do play trumpet every day. I do play trumpet for a living because it feeds my living. I would not be able to do what I do and teach what I teach in the way that I do it without exposing myself to the craft every single day and figuring all that out, all that madness out. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how experienced you are. It's always a game. It's always a game. But that part did pan out, and I said that when I was 11, and I remember that day, and so does my mom. She's always like, she told me when she was 11 years old. That's not her voice at all. I don't know why I did it like that. But at some point, in my undergrad, I was just kind of riding the wave. And I think that's what pretty much everybody does. I think there are very few people that have a extremely clear idea of what their future is going to look like, because most of us, myself included, think that we're going to be able to graduate and get a job playing the trumpet. That's that's kind of what they feed you in school. And then like when you're, when you're an undergrad, you see your teachers, and your teachers are doing that in school. Like if you go to a conservatory or most state schools that are like really, really good, your teachers are playing in the local symphony or state symphony, and they teach at a university, so they have a university level job, which that comes with all its own things. Marcus, you're very aware of that, and you're about to be.
Yep.
And um, and you kind of fall into that thing where you're like, okay, so when I graduate, I'm going to be able to look like them, and I'm going to be able to do that. But what no one really talks about a lot is that the reality is that those jobs are like getting an acting job on a movie, and that most of the time you're just going to be a D-list actor, on a backup call and on a sub list, until there's some little miracle where somebody that's been playing first trumpet in the town that you live in dies, and or like something just kind of random, like they retired or literally they died. Like I have seen that happen so many times, and like as soon as it happens, the next day everyone's flocking to that to see where is the audition, when is it happening, how long is the trial period going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And it's so unrealistic to go to grad school thinking that that's going to be you, because it most likely won't be. And that's not to say that it can't be. Somebody has to get the job, of course. But the most realistic expectation is that you are going to have, if you really want to be a musician and you want to be a creative for a living, you're going to have to create a multi-income portfolio, so that you can make, hopefully, ends meet, but preferably that you will be able to pay your rent and all your bills, and maybe travel once a year when you're a little bit older, and fund your retirement accounts so that you don't have to lift yourself of Social Security, and doing all the things. And then also have like another fund when your parents need you when they're in their 80s. It's a whole thing that young people are not thinking about when they're in their undergrads, that I think those of us that are in our 30s are like, oh, well, I wish I would have known that. So as you can see, I kind of went on a tangent then, but
No, I love it. I want to
that's
hear more about this like multi-income portfolio thing that you were talking about, and like how would somebody say, like who's in undergrad right now, how could they set that as a goal for themselves to like work towards? Like maybe you can't work a bunch of jobs right now in school, but like once you're out of
Yep.
school, or like how can you
Yep.
set yourself up for success?
Oh, God, that is like such a deep question.
You can
I
just
will
say no
get to
too.
that for sure. Yes.
You can
Just
also
no,
you can also
Kayla.
Uno reverse Kayla.
Yes.
Oh no.
Right
No,
back
I
at
have
you.
I have the cards. I have the cards. I don't
She's
know.
holding all the power here.
Or so she
Um,
thinks.
exactly. Um, but yeah, I mean, to kind of, to finish wrapping up your question, Marcus, no, I did not. I am not where today. I am not where I thought I was going to be, but I was just flexible. Like when I came out of school, I was like, okay, well, I need to keep going because I don't think I'm good enough to be anything right now. So I went and got a master's degree. And it was in the master's degree, like I said, that the little pieces just kind of fell into place. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I could have my own business and it can be a music school. And at the time, that was it. And then I did that for like a year. So in 2015, I came up with the idea for Trumpet Headquarters because I thought, well, what if one day I run out of space to take private students? Because that's time. You can only take and teach so many private students. So I set up a little meeting with Dr. Cutler. It was like in the middle of the summer. I was like, hey, I want to talk to you because I have this idea. And I went and he basically didn't offer any specific advice except for one. And he was like, whatever you do, I know that you're going to be really good at it. And I was like, all right, thanks. But about a week after that, I was like, that's exactly the advice that I needed, because I just needed like a confidence boost, basically. Trumpet Headquarters in my mind was like monumental, and it was going to be like a website, which I had never built a website on WordPress before. But I knew I had to do it on WordPress because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do what I wanted to do. And the website now has like 180 pages. I kid you not. It's huge, and it, it kind of came about. And I still have my little booklet of ideas. So since 2015, it's filled now, so it's totally full. But this is Trumpet Headquarters. This is Trumpet Headquarters entirely right here in this 94-cent, $1 notebook. In the very beginning, I'm just searching, like, this is how you start, okay? If you really want to be passionate about something, and this is kind of going into Kayla's question now, like if you're an undergrad and you're like, what do I do with my life? Pick whatever it is that you're really passionate about. And maybe that's performing as a solo artist. Who knows, okay? But it's attainable, like if you really, really, really want it to be attainable. But you can't just sit in a practice room and practice, because no one's going to find you there. You have to go out there and you have to put yourself in front of people so that when they need somebody like you, they're going to think of you because you're right there. And you have to look for people that do exactly what you want to do and follow them and see what they're doing that has brought them to their success. So in my case, I was like, okay, well, who's doing this right now? At the time, artistworks.com was really good. I have a whole page on pros and cons for artistworks.com. Things that I liked, things that I didn't, and a bunch of other ones. etrumpetLessons.com, playthetrumpet.com. And I have like little columns here on things that I like, and I was like things that I think that I could do better. And that's kind of how things start. I think that whatever it is that you set out to do, it's going to end up looking way different. And that's where the flexibility comes in. Like, don't get too married to something, because divorce is 50% possible. Much like in real life. And we're going to get deep here today.
Oh, yeah.
And roll with the punches a little bit. Take everything that you can do. Like, let's say, I don't know, give me something that like somebody wants to do, and then we can go from there.
I love that. You do it, Kayla.
Should I pitch my idea that I talked with you on the phone about?
Yes, do it. I love it. Do it.
Yes, the one. Oh yeah. From the phone conversation a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
you absolutely should.
So Estela, this is kind of like based on like all of my experiences so far with like teaching and performing and working with you and working with other people. But I want to create a program, maybe like a summer camp program for students, kind of like, Apex with Mary Bowden and David Dash and
Dash, yeah.
Can't remember the other, Nathan someone. Anyways.
Yes.
But I want to create a program, first off, that's affordable for students so that they can learn everything that they need in order to be as versatile a musician as possible. So not just learning, like having a section on fundamentals, but having a section on theory, having a section on like ear training and musicianship, but also like performance and entertainment related things like theme park or playing in like, bands for like rock bands or whatever, so that they can get that experience and create like a portfolio for themselves to put out to contractors and stuff. Because I didn't know that any of this was possible when I was even in school. So I think that's something that's a big goal for me. And I was talking with Marcus about it, and I want to create something that trumpet players and eventually brass players and maybe all musicians can gain these experiences that I think are necessary to be successful and to keep moving forward in this quickly changing music world.
Oh yeah. I love it. Okay, cool. I love it. I love the idea, and I think it has like huge potential to be very big. Um, just depending on how you like market it and stuff like that. But I will point out a couple things. So
Mhm.
one thing is that you're talking about a you know, a summer experience where people can gain confidence and experience for their resumes on doing things that you yourself are good at. So that's the key here. You have played at theme parks and you have done the shows where you also have to dance um, and sing and all those skills. Like not everybody can do that. Some people literally their best work is done sitting down on a stage, and that's where they shine, and that's beautiful. But other people's best work is not on that. It's marching down the street at Disneyland. That's a very, very big difference. So I would like to point that out first. And if you are thinking of doing like any kind of venture, you got to dig into what you're really, really good at and how you are different, because everybody's trying to do the same thing. There's many people that are, a lot of places sell hamburgers and a lot of places sell tennis shoes, but there's a very specific reason why you as an individual always buy Nikes and you never buy Adidas, right? That's the why. So I love that you're thinking of that, because I think it's actually really cool. To do something like that, I would kind of narrow it down to who's your ideal market first.
That's exactly what Marcus
if you
said.
can't, yeah, if you don't know your market specifically, it's really hard to sell it, because then you're going to be selling to everybody. You can't sell to everybody. You're not going to find success that way. You have to sell specifically to one group of people. So do you have any idea who your ideal market is?
I think right now my ideal market would be college students who are studying music or interested in doing some sort of music performance. And I want to do it as a way to prepare them to get into some of those like summer jobs like what I did last summer, because it's good income, especially for a student, and it's seasonal. And I don't think enough people are aware of what a good job that could be. Like, you're spending the whole summer performing and playing your instrument and making money doing it. So
Yep.
That's sort of like, I want to set people up for success in the future.
Okay. So we're talking undergraduate and graduate students too, because we all know that, even at a master's degree, some people are still kind of figuring things out. Most people are still figuring things out. But after DMAs, people are still figuring things out. People in their 50s are figuring it out.
Yes. I was going to say we're all figuring. No one really knows what they're doing. We're all figuring things out day by day, which is a beautiful part about life.
Yes, exactly. You never know how it's going to go. Okay, so that's your ideal market. So you have to have your ideal market, and then you have to come up with the benefits for them. I always start right there, and then I work backwards from there. Right? Logistics is the last thing that I look at, like where you're going to hold it, how much money you're going to need, what are people going to eat, are there bathrooms, when are you going to take your breaks, how are you going to get sheet music, who's going to bring the chairs in the stands, will everybody be responsible to bring their own stuff, how will the enrollment process go, who is going to do admin for that, etc. Right? So all of that stuff, the small details, you put that in a little box, and that's going to be at the end, because you can't do any of that unless you know for sure that you can sell it. So if you know what the benefits are going to be, you make a list of that. If you come to this program, by the end of the program, you will be able to do this. You will feel this, right? And you will be able to demonstrate this. So that kind of hits all the points, because people need to connect what their insecurities and their fears to the value that you're offering. So if someone is really good at trumpet, but they have a lot of stage fright and they have a really hard time performing, then one of the benefits for that person on your list would be you are going to get exposure to performing in a controlled, friendly environment where it's okay to make mistakes, and where the person listening to you is going to help you, and they're not going to, make you feel bad about it. You're not going to lose jobs because you performed well. No one's going to say, well, don't hire this person anymore because they missed the high G. None of that is going to happen here. Save zone, right? So
Yeah.
those are the type of like emotional benefits. And then there's like the tangible benefits, like you can put it on your resume and, learn what things are like from experienced people, et cetera, et cetera. So I would, yeah, audience, and then you start there. And then you have to figure out where you get your audience from. And that's where you use your contacts, right? So you have like all these amazing people in your corner, like Marcus and all these other people you've worked with throughout your life. You start with them and you send out an email or something like that, pitching your idea. At the end, if you think your students would be interested in participating, I would love to chat with you on Zoom, set up something on Zoom and talk to them face to face. Tell them why you're doing this, why it's important, how their students could benefit. If they ask for a price, you just say you're working on it. You don't want to throw the price until the very end. Sell your product first, sell your report, sell your value first. Because if you give someone the price first, they're not going to buy it, probably. They're going to be immediately turned off, right? It's kind of like when you go to a luxury store and you walk in and the first thing you do is you see the price tag and the purse is $4,000. You immediately walk out the door. But, right, even if you have the money, but what if you walk in and someone tells you all the craftsmanship that went into that, how long it actually took to make that handmade purse and all the diamonds that are embedded in it and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, well, actually $4,000, it's a reasonable price. And it's kind of like that. Especially with a workshop like that, something like that would probably be, up there. You can't sell a workshop like that where people need to come to you and you need a facility and all that for $400. You have to think a little bit higher. So yeah, you get the thing and then you gauge interest. And that's the stage where you are. You start gauging your interest. I'm going through all the stages. Should I just keep going?
I mean, you can. This is great information for me. And I mean, anybody who's interested in doing stuff like this, I think that the starting point is probably the hardest for a lot of people. Like
it is. Yeah.
Coming up with, who's your target audience and then what can they benefit from? Like those are because a lot of the times, like you think about yourself, like I think about me, like, 10, 15 years ago, like how I would have benefited from something like this. And how can I relate this to more people like me, or like, focus on maybe like one thing rather than everything all at once,
Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
that's
And
super helpful.
anybody can benefit from all the steps. You kind of just copy paste it into whatever it is that you want to do, and it's all the same steps. For everybody. And whatever you do, like whatever venture you start, that's going to open like 6 other doors and possibilities and ideas, because you're going to be doing it. And then at the camp, you're going to meet somebody that does graphic designs for musicians. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, we should make some t-shirts and sell them at the workshop next year. And now you have this other, income stream selling friggin' trumpet t-shirts, That's just kind of how it works with stuff like that. I love it. And I could talk about this all day, clearly. So.
Yeah.
This is such solid advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great. I would love for you to have you keep going just for the sake of our audience, because I know there's a lot of people who would want to put their own passion project in and put in the blanks for, okay, this is what I do next and this is what I do next. I'm kind of curious if we can halt on something for a moment, because a lot of musicians have very complicated relationships around money, right? And there's a part of the conversation where you mentioned where it's like when you're talking to your clients, don't give them the price up front. And I mean, the only reason I know this is from experience and from watching like 70, 100,000 million, bajillion business professionals do it, and to see what is repeated every time, right? But if your clients don't know the value, there's no way they can justify the price in their mind.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about why that's such important? First of all, what exactly is value? Where does it come from? and then how does that help someone be more likely to pay for a service or a product?
Yeah. Um, these are like amazing questions. This is the best podcast I've ever done.
You're so
Um,
sweet.
seriously, this is the most fun I've ever had on a podcast, I think. Um, it I think that like the question of value is subjective to everybody, because it just depends on what they're looking for, and that's when it's really helpful to know who you're talking to before you talk to them. Um, so, for example, I run this private intensive 6-week program for trumpet players, and it's up there in price. And there's no way I could just be like, meet somebody for the first time and I could pitch them the product and then tell them how much it is, and they just be like, yeah, cool. There's no way that would happen. So always before I talk to them for the first time, if we're doing like a consult or something like that, I will already have talked to them on Instagram or on text message or Slack or something somewhere. And I will already know how long they've been playing and what their goals are and why and what's their biggest obstacle and why they want to fix that problem. And the reasons why people want to do things are so different, that I have to know that before I get together with them. Because otherwise, I will be talking about potatoes and they're looking for oranges. And then it doesn't matter how good my program actually is or how much I think it could help them. They're not going to want to buy into it because they're not going to see the value. So value, again, I just think it's very subjective. To some people, it's going to be your expertise. They're going to value your experience the most. Some people are going to value the fact that you can play a double G. Literally. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Some people just, they're not going to work with you unless you can do that. And that's the value that they're looking for. Um, Not necessarily the best reason to work with somebody, but it is reality. But if you know that about them, that you can talk to them at, the level that you can talk to them about what they think they need, and then you can expose them to what they actually need to achieve what they want. So a lot of people just want to play high notes, for example, think that they need a high note method, but what they actually need is to establish a thorough understanding of fundamentals and how the trumpet actually works to achieve those high notes. And now they're going to start seeing the value because they're like, oh, well, if I work with you, then I can learn that, and that's going to get me this one thing that I really want. So does that answer the question about value?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
That's
cool.
such a that last part is such a great. I mean, that you might as well say hi to TikTok, right? Like that's a that's a perfect clip about everyone wants to know. Everyone wants to know, how do I play high notes? And it's like, you got to play the trumpet fundamentally well, and that's boom. Like that's all.
Yep.
It's so funny. I can't tell you how many students I've worked with that'll be like, I can't do X. Okay, cool. Let's play long tones. Awesome. Let's make musical lines. Great. Okay. Let's talk about this with your tone. Okay, play this passage. Oh, did you realize that passage had the note you said you couldn't play? Right, because you can.
Right. Yes.
And it's such a, oh, it's so great. I was hey, both of you guys know I went to Jacob School of Music and I studied with Joey Tartell, and it's really funny because one of my, well, friends and family both made mentions of this. Because you don't necessarily, everyone doesn't know everything about everyone, right? So I'm at Jacob School and I'm with this teacher and so on and so forth. And at one point, um, one of my friends who happened to go to NTC to watch me compete, and Joey happened to be there and whatnot, heard someone talking about his career and was like, "Wait, Joey played with Maynard Ferguson?" And that to them was like, oh, Marcus has the real teacher. And I remember like I went to Joey the next that like when we both went back to IU, and I remember telling him this story because I just thought it was so incredulous to me, and he and I were both laughing together. And I was like, yeah, because you playing lead trumpet with Maynard, that makes you a great teacher. And he was like, yep, you know it, man. Everything I've ever taught to any student at IU, straight from Maynard.
Yep.
But people see certain things that give them the proof of concept, or that give them that inspiration, or that show them this person is someone who is credible, and I want to spend my time and my money and place my trust in on them. And that's such a valuable thing, because that may not be, someone may or may not care that you played at Carnegie Hall, but that same
Yeah.
person might care that that you were able to take a student who didn't get into district band at all last year and got first chair the next year. They might want to know, how do I do that? And so finding your client's value is something really important. So anyway, I'm just really glad you mentioned that. It makes me super excited that we had this, that the conversation went this way. Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking because I don't want to commandeer the conversation. I'm gonna turn it back to you, Kayla. If I had my Uno reverse card.
I think that this has been a really great conversation, and I know that we don't want to make this too long a podcast for everyone listening, but maybe Estela, if you have any closing remarks on like anything that we've talked about or anything that you think our listeners should hear coming from you, like from the business side of things, especially like with all of the experience that you have. I mean, I've already like learned so much here, so be prepared for my workshop coming soon to places near you.
Yes.
Amazing.
I expect to hear about your plans here in the next year or so. And you can count on me for anything. Always here. I'm sure that I would have some candidates for your workshop. So I guess, I don't know, closing, I feel like we went through so many different questions.
Squirrel brains here.
Yeah, totally. My goodness. We never even ended up talking about money. I think we had a question about money, and I kind of forgot about that entirely.
Value, price to value. We talked about it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, great. So I don't know. I think the one thing it comes down to is what you want for you and what you want for them. That's always something I try to like keep in mind is what do I want for me and what do I want for them being my clients. For a performer, them it's going to be your listeners or your employers, or the people, your customers, people that are buying your music or your sheet music or whatever. What I want, in my case, what I want for them is for them to find the moment of, oh my God, I sound good. I feel good about my playing. I don't feel like I'm assaulting my own ears. Or my family's ears, that's pretty much the main concern that I hear, and that's my main drive is to just help people get there. And then you have to have a clear thing of what you want for you. For me personally, it's just balance. Like I love my job. I love sitting on my computer and doing all the admin side of things and the consult notes and the teaching notes and the website, all the things that come with the editing, the whole thing. I love that, but it's so important to me not to allow that to take over my life. So I have to have balance so that I can feel fulfilled and so I'm not like burned out. And that's what I want for me. I want financial freedom. So I don't have to be stressed out in 30 years when I want to retire, and things like that. And do whatever it is that you need to do to remind yourself daily of what do you want for you and what do you want for them. For me, it helps when people reach out and they say, thank you because of what you taught me, I can do this. And that will fuel me for about 30 days. And then I'm hoping that another email will come through because I'm going to need it. And then as far as like fulfilling what I need and like my reminder for what I need for myself is I have this little guy on my desk. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but this is a Daruma doll. It's a Japanese tradition. At the beginning of the year, you get one of these and you fill in the left eye and you make a promise or a commitment. And then you put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. And at the end of the year, if you have done your best to fulfill that promise or commitment, you fill in the other eye.
That's so great.
So I always have that right here at the beginning of my day. I grab it and I go like this. Here we go. And I get to work so I can be reminded of why I'm doing what I do.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's so
that's
wholesome.
great.
I think that everything that we've talked about today, it aligns with our mission as a podcast for like just to uplift each other, uplift ourselves, and just make the world make the world a better place for all of us and for all musicians, and oh, so sappy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great though. We believe in you guys, our listeners. You can do it, especially if you're listening to this podcast and you're inspired and you're looking to go out and take your creative ventures by storm. We urge you to do that. Go back and rewatch some of and listen to some of the parts of this episode that made you excited and apply them to your own work. And I have one more question for you, Estela. Where can our listeners find you best in the wonderful world of cyberspace online?
Probably trumpetheadquarters.com. You can just fill out a contact, ask me whatever you want. Anyone out there has questions about what we talked about, just reach out. I am right here. You can also find me on Instagram at Trumpet Headquarters. Same thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. And I will add my commentary that, I fully endorse Estela. She's great at what she does. And I would recommend you 1,000 times over if I could.
Absolutely. And now we bring this meeting to an end.
She's been waiting an hour to pull that card.
Oh my gosh. She's been waiting an hour to bring the cancel card from Uno. That is amazing.
Oh, I love it.
To our listeners, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We love you, and tune in for our next podcast episode releasing in 2 weeks. Goodbye.